Well, thank you for joining us for Over a Brew. I know we've had 20 minutes of chat already. We'll see what we have left for the podcast now. So obviously we know each other from the AI community for Wales that Jisk has put together, and we've been chatting, like Leanne said earlier, just through a screen so far. We haven't really met in the flesh, so I'm sorry about that. But yeah, thank you for taking the time to join us here. This is part of our AI discussion. We're trying to chat with as many colleagues from as many different institutions to try and hopefully offer up some extra dimensions to the discussion. And today, as you know, we're chatting about teaching, learning, assessment. No biggie, just a small topic, tiny little thing. So I know we have different types of ins into the role of AI in education in terms of T&L and assessment, and it would be great as we chat about it to let us know how you fit into that yourself. But let's kick it off with something easy. Let's kick it off with something easy.
My name?
Well, we believe it or not, we're going to put like little tags there for you to have. Leanne and Minty with us today. We're very lucky to have colleagues from Gower and Cardiff and Vale with us, and very lucky to have colleagues who are looking into this topic as it's developing, and you've been looking into it as it started. So how do you see AI developing in T&L? Don't know, just start jumping once. I'm sure we'll have ideas. How do you see it starting from the news that shocked everyone? Oh, AI is taking over the world, and we're all afraid no one's going to learn anymore, and all of those lovely.
Fear.
It was fear, wasn't it? I was trying to dress it into something else, but it was fear. From that to now, when it's kind of tapered off and people are a bit more used to it, how do you see it, and how do you see the initial implications into your little sphere in terms of work?
Well, initially I thought it was going to explode in the teaching and learning kind of sector, but I feel like actually the uptake's been really quite slow. So part of what I've been trying to do is make that happen within our college and within our curriculum. Okay. Especially for staff, so they've got the AI literacy there to then pass that on to the students and work with the AI. But I don't know about you.
I think there's been two. I think we've had an absolute explosion of it's terrible, it's going to ruin everything, there's no learning taking place, there's no point, there's no need for any teachers or anything. We've had that explosion, and it's almost like anything in education, isn't it? That we just, oh my gosh, we don't know what to do with it.
Yes.
But I'm feeling quite confident that in the last year or so, the rhetoric around it has now been, oh, actually, there's some good stuff in this space. I mean, there was Dan Fitzpatrick. I mean, I completely admire what that guy's done and seized the space initially. And we're all coming for you, Dan. But I think he seized the space initially, and he really did start to change the conversation and really put a positive slant on how it impacts on the planning, not necessarily for learners, but creating that better space and creating a better environment for learning. That's what I see over the next 2 years growing massively, because we can't upskill our learners and their digital literacy unless our staff are confident and competent and able to do it.
Love that.
And I think that's what our job is to keep that fear bubbling down, to push these exam boards to get some authentic assessment that allows us to use it, because we can do all the things we want to do, but if we still got to sit them in an exam room at the end of the year, it's not gonna change anything.
Yes.
So I think our job is about seizing this moment and developing the confidence and competence so that we can then pass it on to our learners, and I think it will become the norm. And I've no doubt we'll chat later on, but I've got a personal interest in how I think it can really help accessibility for learning and access to learning for so many people. So that's where I think we will see as well. Accessing learning is going to change, and not just in education in schools or FE, I think professional learning space.
I think so, yeah. It's. I think you've all mentioned it there, the fear factor. Once you get people who, at the beginning of a wave, they're obviously riding the wave, and everyone is trying to communicate, oh, this is going to change things, this is good, this is big. Once that wave goes, and however you feel about it, whether you're excited or you're a bit fearful about it, etc., the question for us comes, how do we bring that into the classroom? How do we bring that, like you said, with our colleagues in a meaningful way where they can grab hold of something? So I don't know if you maybe we want to start with where your role is, or where your role has been when AI started, and maybe talk us through how you've approached it. Because I think, again, there's a lot to unpack there, but the crux of that is what did you do after the Dan Fitzpatrick or whoever you listened to initially, who brought the wow moment of like, oh my God, this has a lot of implications, or maybe you found it somewhere else. It wasn't Dan Fitzpatrick for me, but for a lot of people in education, that was the moment when they heard the talk from someone like Dan Fitzpatrick. So how did you do after that? Where's your role, and how did you unpack that afterwards?
Go on, Minty, if you would.
We're keeping the order, is it? We're going this way. That's
Oh
good.
no, you know me, I'll interrupt everything. So I'm trying to give Minty actually some talking space.
Well, for me, when I kind of learned about AI and ChatGPT as a thing that we could access and not just sort of completely inaccessible, it was TikTok.
Okay.
So yeah, for me, the TikTok algorithm took me there, and that's when I was like, oh wow, this is actually going to change the entire way we teach, we assess, the way we deal with students in our college. So I was like, right, we need to act, we need to really do something. So then I set up the working group for our college in order to try and work with the staff so that we could like create plans and go forward with like CPDs and develop those for staff that were less inclined to engage with AI. So yeah, originally I thought it was going to be very fast paced in how it ended up in the classroom, but it's been kind of a slower 2 years than I anticipated, but good nonetheless, like that we're getting there with the AI, yeah.
Lovely.
And you've got an AI lead role, right?
So I work with the quality team for leading our AI sort of progress, I guess.
I know. So
That's cool.
I got like I remember when moment. I remember where I was when I hit this. So it wasn't Dan Fitzpatrick for me, but I will come back to that because that's how we turned it for our staff. It was November. No. It was ChatGPT, right? So myself and my digital peer mentors, we're always watching the digital space, and we've been building staff digital literacy for a while. Because I'm the teaching and learning manager for the college, and digital peer mentors and the digital framework and digital training sits under me. So I've been on this space like you for a long time. But it was that big push that November 2 years ago when ChatGPT really started making a lot of noise, and a colleague and I got really excited because he came literally running down the corridor, and I'm not even saying he was running down the corridor, saying, look how quick I've written the report. Right? And we were looking at like how quick you could write reports and things. We're like, oh, this can change space, and there was lots of other things coming around. And then there was some little bits on LinkedIn and little articles coming out. So we started to think, right, what can we see? What's in the space? What's happening? I went to Bet. So, and I don't know if you've been to Bet.
Yeah.
So, and it's Bet, not how it sounds sometimes. And there was every stand and every second talk was AI pedagogy, AI. And it really was, and believe it, Dan Fitzpatrick was there, and everyone was trying to get in. And I was like, well, I haven't signed up to this session, but I'm going to get in because I want to know what's going on. And it was about how he delivered it. And I saw a lot of teachers that were going, oh, it's actually all right. You could hear the buzz, like, oh, that could be really good. That could be. So I literally, for want of a better term, stalked him as well, like to make him come to our staff development day. So, but then I went to different other conferences, and I arranged to trial some tools in the Teacher-matic space. It was really early generator through the BLC community, trying lots of different stuff. I managed to agree a little pilot to try that with our digital peer mentors, rolled that out to represent 50 staff to see how they responded. I wanted to get over where are the barriers, what are the problems, because if I can get in front before I roll anything out, where the negatives are coming from, I've already dispelled those barriers. So you do training, go, you can do this. Now you might be thinking, so you already confront the barrier.
Yeah.
And then at the end of term, I had Dan Fitzpatrick for all our teaching staff come to our conference. And what he showed to somebody who's like yourself and Minty, nothing that we didn't know, But to everyone else in the room who thought it was the worst thing in the world, thought it was the most amazing thing in the world.
Yes.
And that was a turning point for me. Sometimes I just think you need another voice. Otherwise, it's just, Leanne's just really excited about something again, right? Sometimes you need another voice.
Yes.
Just to turn it. And that's what worked for me. And then we got some more people to buy in and things like that. And we really have made a huge movement forward in removing that fear in the last 12 months, genuinely.
That's lovely. I know we're moving sideways from AI itself, but we've had a quick chat before about it. I think it's really interesting how you are set up in your college in terms of driving digital transformation. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about your setup and how you see, especially in terms of AI and digital transformation, how you see that rolling out?
So I'm the teaching and learning manager, and we have a clear teaching and learning, which is development arm. Then we have a digital peer mentor arm. The peer mentor is really important. It's not about just the digital innovation team. They are the support and the bones that really help us drive that forward. And we've got the infrastructure team. But our peer mentors are 10 staff from different learning areas who have some remitted time to work with me. We create a digital framework and we've based it on the SAMA model. And it's about developing staff, lots of different programs. And within that, there's how to use different tools, but within it is all the AI bits of each digital tool, all right, to encourage people to develop their skills and confidence.
That's cool.
And we do that through a mixture of one-to-one support, team support, drop-in support. We do it. I've developed a new SharePoint this year, which is going to replace, it's got like all the profiles of all the peer mentors, and they've got dedicated specialisms that they're looking after this year. So if somebody's really interested in Microsoft Reflect or Microsoft College, and that's really changing things, they know to go to Liam or Leah for that specific bit of training. And then we put on development days and digital days. So the drive is really huge, and it got accelerated in the AI space because I was able to secure one of the AI projects from just last year. So what I wanted was, there's so much out there and it's moving so fast, and appraising and having the time to appraise those tools is really important. And affordability and FE, it always comes down to that, doesn't it?
Of course it does.
Yeah.
So what we managed to do was secure a programme, and we had several pillars, but one of them was to look at several tools, try them, test them. Are they working? Are they fit for purpose? Does it work in humanities? Does it work in ILS? Does it work in vocational ed? Does it work in work-based learning? If it ticks as many of those boxes as one of us think, that's what we need to think about. If it doesn't, okay, it goes on a pile that's good for this. Because I think you've heard me talk about this before. I genuinely think there needs to be a space, and just if anyone listens, needs a TripAdvisor type space where there's a review that simply says, this tool is really good for this.
Yes.
This tool is really good for that. So if you're a college with a tight budget, or you're concerned of going into an FE, into the AI space, you can go, all right, Teacher-matic does almost everything that we want it to do right now. So let's go with that. And that's our first foray of investment, or Copilot, or wherever else it might be.
It's making that informed decision, isn't it? It's giving
and I
people
think that's what we need to do as a sector. I think we could all be feeding into it. We could all be a bit more responsible and all go, right, I know, we'll try Magic AI, we'll try Copilot, we'll try Canva. Let's share what we've got. That's what works, and that's what we adopt as a sector for consistency and parity, and let's see how it works.
I mean, we're going to get to tools in a second, but the idea of giving people a little guide or an in to a particular tool, it's really, really useful. Do you have a similar setup in Cardiff and Vale, in terms of how you drive that digital transformation?
It's
in terms of AI,
probably slightly different to do with AI. We haven't got as such a focused group. Ours is more based around the working group and our quality team. So that is sort of more driven by having sort of CPD sessions. So we've got like digital leads, for example, that put on like AI how-tos.
Lovely.
And we've been looking at like trying to encourage staff to just come to short sessions to upskill. So that's kind of what we've been doing to kind of battle that initial fear. Because obviously in the beginning, there was a lot of colleges and schools around the world just banning it outright, and we were trying to fight
come
that.
on, now.
Yeah, we were trying to like combat that fear in the news by being like, no, it's try this, try writing your lesson, and actually some people will eventually do realise that this is amazing and I can save a lot of time.
We ran, first time we ran an insights a survey with our staff, one of the biggest fears was around ethical and security concerns. You had fears around technical limitations in terms of, I don't know how to get into it or how to use it, which we could easily help with. But all of that stuff comes from headlines, isn't it? It comes from how it's being portrayed. So we did the same thing. We tried to change the optics on it, hopefully, and slowly expose as many people in different departments, like you said, to try and find different ins. What we haven't done, though, which I think is really interesting of what you said, we haven't done like a guide of different tools. We've done the opposite in a way, which I don't know if it's good or bad. It might be terrible. We've done the opposite in a way. We've tried to move people initially to the center, to something like Copilot, so that people have an in into something that, like you said, does a lot of this, the stuff you need doing, and they can get used to the chatting with an AI and getting some product off them. And I don't know if that's necessarily good, because a lot of people are, Copilot is good, they're impressed with, and other people are like, they're not really taken by it, especially, I don't know if you've used it a lot, but you have refreshing type of issues. It doesn't remember conversations because of data security and so on. So it's not like all singing and dancing, but it does a lot of the good stuff you want it to do. So we kind of bet down the middle. We're the people who invest in the shares of the SB 500 type of thing, right? we invest right down the middle. But there are so many different avenues for different curricular areas. And you work in creative, don't you, Minty? So you have all the fun stuff, In creative, you have all of the fun type of AI, You have image, you have audio, you have soon text to video coming up. So
it's a pretty crazy time for creative. There's so many tools. I think that's one of the challenges is that the vast amount of tools, like you were saying, you can't try and get through them all to work out which one's the best and which one's feasible, and that's
why we tried to do a bit of an appraisal and approach, and actually having those questions allowed us to see what people were looking to use it for, what they couldn't get a result for. So you mentioned Copilot. Copilot doesn't do what I want it to do. I want it to search through my calendar and create a list of all the meetings that had this title and they're all the same. Doesn't do it. I want it to do that. That's what I want.
You just have to pay a lot of money for it.
Exactly. That's it, isn't it? It's about the money thing. So that's why we try to go, it's about finding what works and what fits. Totally. And it's about the line of best fit, I think. And I think a lot of this is that, isn't it? We're never going to get a one-size-fits-all solution.
No.
But I do think if we have some more collaboration across the sector, we've got better chance of finding a right melting pot of solutions that can be drawn, and even lobby for financial discounts or efficiencies or something.
I think that's being done at the moment for Copilot because the price is prohibitive for a lot of institutions. We've only had a few licenses that a few people are using to dabble with it. And definitely, like you said, the value of it would be in the paid version that it can look into the Microsoft Graph and look into your data and then pull things from there. And it's getting much better at that. It's not amazing, but it is doing that. It can pull data from the graph. But then you come, and I know it's not a TNL type of issue, but then you come to the issue of how good is our data in Microsoft Graph? Are we actually creating good amount of data? Are we talking about sharing good practice in TNL? Are we sharing our resources with everyone? If we were to adopt a Copilot paid version, would people have access to it? So it's all of those have to align, I think, to make the most out of that tool.
But I think you're right, because I think finding whole college solutions is actually really important because it does feed into TNL, because if the process is more efficient, the data is more efficient, we understand our learners and our profiles and we can interrogate the data more. If it's not doing what we say, we lose people.
Yes.
And if we lose people, we're all inclined to try. It's by our nature. We want to investigate, we want to probe and practice, but not everyone is. Everyone sometimes just wants to know, how do I do this?
You're right. As soon as it doesn't do what you want, people disengage.
They think it's, and you get all the negative comment. It doesn't work. It's rubbish. AI. They collectively group it as AI is rubbish. As and it's not. It's that thing didn't work.
And also, it's in its very beginning stage.
That's right.
It's only going to get better from. This is the worst it's ever going to be.
Yes.
That's quite scary to think about that, actually, and wonderful at the same time.
But it's interesting what you were saying about how you, as a college, went straight for Copilot just to eliminate the confusion of everything. I think because it is such an encompassing overwhelming sector to try and like, get into, especially if you've got that fear around it. So one of the things that we did with people that were a bit more fearful to start with was actually steer them more towards Claude by Anthropic rather than ChatGPT, because ChatGPT automatically sounds a bit techie in that it's got like ChatGPT.
Yeah, Claude is more like a person.
Claude's like a person. Hi, Claude.
Just
Like,
like
it's
chat
like
to Claude.
Ask Jeeves. Like,
Yeah, it has got Steve's vibes.
whereas, so people are a bit more like, oh yeah, I can talk to this thing. Whereas ChatGPT immediately they're like, I don't know how to do that.
Yes, yeah. No, that's a really cool. I didn't think about that, but yes, I think we like to think of it as being a bit more human, and a few people treat it as that. I've seen a lot of people being very polite to the AI.
Please, can you?
Yeah, please, can
It's
you?
really polite to my AIs.
That's really cool. If we can just maybe move it back a little bit and just maybe try and bring it back to teaching and learning. And I know obviously you have classes at the moment. You know what everyone is doing, I assume, in your college, because you're involved in every department and you have mentors everywhere. How do you see AI being developed in the classroom currently? And maybe we can go after that with how would you like to see it develop in an ideal world, some blue sky thinking. If it could do all the things we want it to do, then maybe we can look at where we are and maybe try and think how we would like it to be in the future classroom of whatever, 2030, let's say, in the future. But how do you see it now in the classroom?
Oh, in the classroom at the moment, for the past 2 years, I've been trying to itty-bitty put it in where I can, introduce it in whatever kind of form I can to students, because obviously this is their future.
Yes.
They're going to have these skills, otherwise they won't get the jobs they want. I think one of the things we're now struggling with is obviously the permissions to use things. So you've got to have your age permissions in order to use certain tools, and all the tools are different. So
how do you do that? Let me just pause there, because I want to ask Leanne that as well. How do you get around the consent thing? Because you might have people in your class who are over 18, some who are, and I know some have 13 plus, others have 18 plus type of permissions.
So originally the plan was over summer to construct something of a permission form to send out to parents to get parental permission and save that within our data if they signed it. But that kind of ended up being much more difficult than we imagined to get off the ground, especially college-wide.
Yes.
So one of the things I read about was another college, and I wish I could remember their name if so I could give them credit for this idea, but instead of rolling out permission slips and getting them signed, they did a blanket letter saying, we will be using this. We think we've got permission from you unless you say otherwise.
So it's an opt-out.
Yeah, like an opt-out scheme.
Okay.
So I think the way we're going now is more an opt-out scheme, and just to get that message out there, and then hopefully that will combat some of the logistics.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's an interesting approach. What do you have?
So sneaky is the way I was thinking. No. So we've been trying to get student buy-in through teacher usage. So we've disabled Copilot for learners on their login and their permission because there's this permissions, how we're using it. And also we're waiting for the responses from all the exam bodies and stuff over summer for appeals and things. But what we've been doing is allowing the staff to use the tools with the class. They're not logging in, not using it, but they are chatting with Mizu by saying to the staff member, if they're doing a revision tool for a chatbot, so how could you refine it? So we've been building their skill, but doing it as a classroom-led discussion.
So it's like a co-creation
So we might say, right, we've got ChatGPT up and we're thinking, how can we refine this topic? So we're using it as rich thinking, and I really think we can do loads of flip learning, and we might come on to that. But so we'll sit in the class and go, right, so how could we ask this question? What else could we prompt? We'll use it as a teaching tool, so they're becoming familiar.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're not using it, so it's a bit like they're being exposed to it, they're seeing the efficiencies of it. We're not saying you shouldn't use it, we're saying you obviously under plagiarism policy and all those kind of things, you use it outside, etc. But we're showing them all the benefits right now without them having to log in and access.
Yes, yeah.
But with the view to, once we sort out, which is what our hot topic was last week and where we're moving on this, and we're going to set up an AI steering group, which I'll come to if we get a chance.
Yeah, of course.
And that's been the most responsive group. But we're showing them And we've even been open enough and shown them Teacher-matic if there's like coming up with quizzes. Let's come up with a quiz.
I love
What
the transparency of that. That's good.
Let's have a look. We're not showing them, all the bells and whistles, but we're showing them. So they are seeing how it works, and they're asking the question, go, oh, could you ask it to do? And that's even happening with our ILS learners, which is the biggest, most exciting space, I think, for AI, is that.
Same approach,
space.
Is it?
Absolutely.
That's
so
cool.
they've got
How did that go?
individualised targets and personalised learning, which is where I think,
Yeah,
I've
go
jumped
for it.
ahead a bit, where
Yeah,
I
go
think
for it.
we can really see AI help. In the classroom, I think we need to get over the permissions. I think we need a parity tool. For all people in the FE sector, we have a responsibility. So we need a real parity tool for all learners to be able to access, because every learner, we shouldn't be competing on the digital literacy level we provide our learners. The teaching and learning experience is what we should compete on,
That's right.
not the parity of access, right? So I think we have a skill, we can make a level program, we know what the expectations are, we know what the milestone we all need to get our learners to, and with that tool, but it's that individualised learning, that stretch and challenge, because if they know how to use it, they can refine and critically analyse their work, they can ask another question.
That's right.
But if we flip the learning, so I can see us going up, if we go real pedagogy, higher order thinking skills, this is where it's going to work. We need to get away from sitting in the class and just delivering and doing the content, etc., and then they're going away and they do a piece of homework, then it gets marked, then it comes back. Where's the learning? Actually, did they write, no,
Yes.
we flip the learning. We say, once we've sorted out permissions, here's the question. Go away, go and use ChatGPT, Bing, whatever you want to use, come back with your essay or your response. They'll all go away, write their own prompt based on their own ability. Some of them will just put one prompt in. Some of them will refine, and that's the stretch and challenge, that's the critical thinking, that's the learning. They all come back in their space. They share their findings, they share their outputs. There's differences in outputs. The lesson and the discussion and the critical learning and the stretch and challenge comes from a practitioner going, why is your answer better? Where's the validity? Where's the authenticity? Where's the commonality? Where's the, why is Minty's answer the same as Tibi's?
Yes.
What did you put in? What else could we do? You get all the best bits, and then in the class, then you write, because we still have an exam to teach them for, then you still write. Then you go, right, based on everything we've discussed, now in the class, write your best essay.
Yeah.
But we've stretched and we've challenged, and for that shy learner, or the learner that didn't get the question in the classroom, ChatGPT or Bing or whatever else you want to use has given them access to learning.
Yeah.
Flip it.
I think that area of everyone is afraid of using AI because they're afraid it gives the answer straight away. But like you said, the strength of that would be in reviewing the answers and discussing that.
And I think that's the new way of
Has to be.
of us teaching, to be honest, like exactly what you said. And I think you're right with the ALN space, and it's really giving us an advantage with that differentiation in the classroom. I've been doing my HE fellowship, and one of the big things we've been looking at, because they are 18 and they don't need the permissions, which is great. They have been introduced to Claude because it's friendly, and they've gone away and asked question after question after question, and that's given them such a lift compared to where they were before.
Yes.
In their knowledge and their ability to research autonomously.
And what's the difference between,
No, go for it.
What's the difference, isn't it? We're doing it, they've done it themselves. What's the difference in them going away writing the homework and the teacher writing and putting up the model answer anyway?
Yeah.
Because they would just write rubbish and wait for the model answer. At least they've gone away and had a go and refined and tried.
Yeah.
And in that space, they feel more enabled. And the ALN is where I genuinely absolutely see it. I think it will give us universal design, not differentiation, which is where I really want to get to. Plan that lesson for every ability. That's what's really good about some of the tools that are out there, the ability to plan a lesson that is inclusive from the outset. That's a time save for the teacher. That's an amazing lesson for a learner because everyone can access the space. That's where I see it absolutely changing teaching.
I love everything you said, by the way, and I agree with that. It's giving people time also to process things properly, because again, if you just ask the question, you have the answer, you pass it back. If there's no time to process what you've been looking at and understand it, you're bypassing the learning altogether. And obviously that's not the goal of it. A naysayer would say, well, what about the pressures of exam? This is going to take tons of time in my classroom to give everyone the option to do this, that, and the other, come with the answers, review them, etc. What would you say to them? To those naysayers?
Naysayers. We do have, you used the phrase earlier, war. It is now.
Whoa.
The question there was about time. That's what I'm saying. You've got to rethink the learning. You flip the learning. The activity that's taken place is no different. You've just moved it. You've moved the emphasis of who does it. And actually, because learning has taken place, because critical learning has taken place, your formative assessments can be much more efficient, much more productive. You can learn more along the way. Exam preparation is drills, can be done quite later on, but if you've got that learning there in the first place, that learner is better placed to answer the exam. The exam shouldn't just be a knowledge dump.
I think even when it comes to like exams, the fact that we've got AI now to help with that. So last summer, all of my exams, I had like AI written quizzes that they could do,
More formative
like
assessment,
revision documents that were generated based on what would be on the exam, and all of these things that they could then access that would have been painstakingly made otherwise.
But we can use the blended nature of platforms, our Moodles, our learning platforms, just learning properly. You could create multiple individualised assessments that they can keep learning in the space. We'd never have time to create 22 individual quizzes, ever. You can do that with just a regenerate button on AI from the same worksheet, the same textbook chapter, the same space. It doesn't take any more time.
Like,
I know I get
encourage
overexcited.
No, that's good. That's good.
To like make their own quizzes to test themselves. Like, okay, you've got that like level up now.
Yes.
And then they can generate that themselves.
This is kind of leading us into the how would you like in an ideal world. Like we said, we have all the money to pay for whatever license, and the tools can do things they can't do yet. How do you see, I know you kind of touched on what would you like to see, but how do you see education in the future, or how you would like to see it in a world where AI is obviously an intrinsic part of the learning process in FE or HE, whichever way you want to go?
I mean, I'd start by having everyone be excited about the possibilities and have their AI literacy skills as high as they possibly could. Because it is such a fast-moving space that you do need to keep up. I mean, I think even us, we struggle to on top of everything that's changing. So in a perfect world, the future of education and the learning space, I would have, like you were saying, the students using AI in a way that really benefits them. So creating stuff that they can analyse and teaching them how to analyse. I think our biggest skill now will be how keenly we can spot whether something is fake news or a fake image, or is it trying to lure me into something? I think that's going to be our biggest skill, and I'd like to try in the future, a couple of years, get away from like, oh, I'm using AI to write a thing, and rather be like analysing, not was this written by AI, but is it giving me the information I need? Is it trying to say what I want to say?
Yes.
Or is it just complete waffle that I generated, you know?
So many underpinning skills in that. Sorry, Leanne, go for it.
No, it's fine. Google has given us knowledge for ages. Textbooks have given us knowledge for ages. AI doesn't actually give knowledge. AI simulates information. So I see, where I see the classroom is we spend all our time in those higher order thinking skills. That's what I see in the classroom. Our jobs are not going to be about giving the knowledge. It's based on the knowledge you have found. We flip it. We put more onus on the learner.
Yes.
They're not coming in to get the knowledge. They're coming in to have their knowledge tested, analysed, critically examined. That's what I think our job as educators are going to be. That's what's going to allow us to check authenticity, check challenge, break down some of the wider barriers. People being able to critically analyse whether something is fake news or not is exactly the same skill they need to be able to critically analyse, has that bit of information that they found on, I don't know what Pythagoras theorem is, right? And does it work, or what is Maslow's hierarchy of needs? We can all do that. We don't need a teacher to tell somebody what Maslow is. What we need a teacher to do is encourage you to understand what Maslow is, how it applies, where it works, why it's beneficial, what we should do with it does it have a place? That's what our job is going to be. We don't need to fear it. Let them go and get the knowledge, but let us challenge it in the classroom, and then building resources and ability to create lots more formative assessment opportunities. They've got lots to stretch and challenge along the way. That's what we need to do.
That's cool.
Anyway.
I don't know if any of you, if you're probably following Ethan Mollick. I'm a big Ethan Mollick fan. If you haven't, there's a lot of really good stuff coming from Wharton as well. But there were a couple of studies that I think they've been involved with. I think him and their team and a few other of their colleagues in MIT, I want to say. I can't remember exactly. And they did a whole study on what happens about the point of entry of AI in the learning process or bypassing it. And I think the percentages were very scary, that if you use AI to bypass the learning and go right to the end, learning drops to like 15% or 17% or something like that. And if you involve it, like you were describing there, at the beginning of the process, so it's part of what you do, not, AI is going to check this or do that, then it increases it to whatever it was, 80-something%, drastically increasing, obviously, the learning or attainment, however we want to measure that. But for us at the moment, that is the conundrum. Where do we bring it in, and how do we bring it in a way where other people can look at it and say, I want to do what Leanne is doing because that makes perfect sense and I can change that. But that means changing how we teach. And this is leading us to assessment now, but it's changing how we teach and how we set up for the assessment, how that has to happen. And obviously we have some control over that. There's, like you said, in some exam situations, we have no control over that. It's outside. But I think setting the first part up, personally, it's gonna influence the latter one. So before we go into, obviously we're gonna go to tools, let's go to assessment, which is a big hot topic at the moment for us in terms of AI and assessment. Have you seen any changes where you work in terms of either changing assessments, or have you seen any changes from learners in terms of dealing with assignments, assessments, exam prep, whatever you're involved with, and using AI for it?
I think this is where I started off in 2022, quite naive as to how the uptake was going to be, because I did imagine immediately all of the examples would go, whoa, we need to jump on this, we need to change things, we need to be ready and, embrace or work out what our new strategy is, and nothing kind of changed really. What you are now seeing, obviously, is them putting in disclaimers that students have to sign saying, this work is my own, it's not AI generated, or if it is, you've got to have referenced which tools you used and where. That's kind of the only thing I've really seen from that side of assessments. In terms of students, again, apart from all of the plagiarism issues that you get, and for me, the plagiarism issues aren't really that big of an issue, because you can spot them straight away if you know your students. You read it, you go, that paragraph was yours, and that absolutely wasn't. But that's the same as it's always been. Like, you could have you could always have copied it out of a book or off of Google or Wikipedia. That's not changed. So the nature of cheating has just got different. It's sidestepped. It's not. So us spotting it as teachers is the same as it's always been, just to know your students. Yes. And you can use tools like ChatGPT 0, but you're not going to get anywhere with it, because it's not got a pass rate that's going to help you. And the best it can do is kind of back you up when you go, I think that's AI generated, I need to take it to the student, and you can go, look, 0 thought so as well. That's the best you can really do with that. So it's just, I think it's just about knowing your students in that regard. But other than that, I don't think assessments have really changed much for me at the moment.
No. Formative assessment has changed.
Yeah.
When we have been writing, I spoke about writing some new degrees recently. So whilst AI has not been written into the assessment, what is forced is a better range of assessment, a much more authentic assessment. And that excites me anyway, because even if the byproduct is they're not writing another doing just an ordinary presentation or just doing a case study or a report, it's brought a richness to assessment. So we got commended for a piece of work we did recently, and that I think the validation chair called it, you've got Uncle Tom Cobley and all his siblings as an assessment tool in this provision, because there was a podcast, there was a vlog, there was a recorded, there was an observation, there was a huge range, there was an exhibition rather than just a presentation. But it's forced better look at assessment and authenticity, because people are creating more authentic assessment.
Yes.
That we're not saying you can't use AI for yet, and we're not at the point yet where we can say use AI to do this.
Yeah.
We'll get there. I really think we will, and we'll use the skills. But it's forcing that change of authentic assessment. That for me is a huge win, except in the space where we are heavily regulated, where we can't change it
Yeah.
with those awarding bodies. Because, and it's a bit chicken and egg.
It is.
We need to change our teaching, but we need this endpoint to change as well, to make sure that people know they can change their teaching.
Yes.
Because otherwise people are like, what is the point?
Why would they?
Feel like it's an exercise in futility.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can chomp at the bit for ages, and they go, yes, it's great in the classroom, but I've got to stop doing all my exciting stuff in January because I've got to get them ready for an exam. And what are we getting them ready for? To dump knowledge. When they go to university, they're not going to be able to critically think, analyse, respond. They're not going to be able to
No,
research.
I hate
They're not going to
exams.
be able to challenge. We're not doing them any favours. In their workspace, they're using it we're using it every day.
Yes.
We're not enabling them to use it. We're doing them a disservice.
Definitely.
So we've got to get that endpoint changed. So it's not been written into assessments yet, but it's changed the conversation around authentic assessment, and it is bringing in much more formative assessment, which again is huge
Yes.
for me. And again, it's enabled personalised learning, especially with our ILS students, because they're in a non-accredited curriculum.
Oh, okay.
So they use like a RAPA system, which might be something, and a colleague of mine who's been using AI heavily, who's a mentor in that space, we might do something and talk about that at a
Cool.
later date. But that's created individual personalised learning and stretching those targets and stretching those learners and reimagining it. That's where it's helped. But we've got to get this end bit. And the only reason we could change authentic assessment in our HE space is because it's regulated by us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what we create.
You have latitude, of course.
Absolutely. And that's what the issue is.
In areas where it's very rigid, let's call it, it's almost like it's pointing at a traditionalist approach of going back to just pencil and paper, and that's how we show that learners work. And to me, and maybe it's just me, it's annoying that authenticity has become, did you write it?
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah,
not
no.
that shouldn't encompass everything of what authentic assessment or an image or a presentation, a snapshot, whatever you want to call it, of my learning about said thing. And I know people say, well, what about maths, because you can't do this. I would argue that the way we assess maths makes maths more restrictive. And that's from someone who used to teach it. It's so boring for the learner having to do things in a certain way, because they mark for the method, they mark for the answer, and the questions are always the same. They're churned out in the same way each year. So it's easy for me to say that, saying, oh, we need to change assessment. How that is benchmarked and how that is meets goals of said maths needs at Wales-wide level and UK workforce, etc., it's beyond me. But I can definitely say that doesn't work. And something that explains concepts, that can stretch those limits like an AI tool can, in terms of finding where the limit of your learning is and pushing it as a teacher does, has a lot of benefit. And for me, that's where I would love to see the discussion go, to figure out what do we need to change, using your example from HE, what do we need to change to make that easier to assess and make it more about the individual and how they approach maths, journalism, you name it, whatever it is. Because I think then you give space for that type of reflection, critical thinking skills happening at a higher rate, because it's not just look at the board, we're doing this type of thing, this is how you solve it, these are the methods. It's so linear and boring, circular.
But I want to pick up on what Minty said then about checking and authenticity. I really want to wage war on the word AI detection. Okay, it isn't a detection; it's a predictor. You can't detect it, and I really hate people hanging their hat on. And it's been disproved. I mean, the failure rate is going down, going up rather, continually with some of the tools that are out there right now. We can't hang our hat on it.
Yeah.
Not just some of them, with all of them. Yeah.
We can't hang our hat because it doesn't afford us for bias. Okay, it's not all learners are first language English, so they will use different phrasing, different descriptors and different phraseology, and they'll use a thesaurus and everything else.
Yes.
And because of the way they'll assimilate that word, the AI detector, in inverted commas, thinks, oh look, it's a very formulaic language, it is going to predict the next word. That poor student hasn't used it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you know what's
There's
interesting
bias.
about that is when I'm writing now, like an academic piece of work, I end up checking myself for words that I know that like ChatGPT throws in there quite a lot.
Yes,
and I end up sort of trying to omit those so that I don't get seen.
So what you're actually getting there is actually you are reflecting and critically thinking and challenging. You're doing that learning.
I will throw in, I like the word tailored when I'm writing, but so does ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So I end up using tailored a lot less.
So actually you've improved your literacy because you're using a
just to
different
avoid
word.
Yeah, I'm just like, I
the
just
AI
don't want
thinking.
them, to miss.
But how do we challenge it? You're right, you've got to know your learner. It's part of a suite of tools we might look at. It might say, look, I've looked at this and the voice here in this paragraph is different to the voice here. We can interrogate that. What did
course
you
you can.
do differently here? Right, that's a very different question from going, you cheated.
Yeah.
What did you do differently without being accusatory? Because at the moment, we're not developing their literacy skills and they can't get their head around it's not plagiarism because it's new content.
Yeah. That's
Right?
the big thing,
They
isn't it?
can't. But it is because it's not you. And you have to go through that process. But you go, well, why did you put that here? When you haven't used this theory elsewhere. So why? You use it as a learning opportunity and then give them the chance. What we can't do is go, you have cheated
Yeah.
because this detector, which isn't a detector, has said you have. We're opening ourselves up to huge ramifications here.
I've seen a lot of people use all sorts of sense detector tools, including the Turnitin one. And you read the articles, and every study showing false positives are through the roof. So, same, we look at it as an indicator.
Wasn't there even a false positive on the Bible? They fed some of the Bible
Yeah.
and they said it was AI.
Yes, and I don't know if you've seen. Was it Southampton? There was a study from Southampton Uni, I think. The first one, the take-home exam study. Have
Yeah.
you seen that one? So they've added a few AI-produced
produced
at-home exams. So it's proper blind study. None of the markers knew that was the case, and the results produced by AI were above average of the cohort of students. And I think one was picked up. I might be wrong. I think only one of them was.
It was all it was like a ridiculous percentage, wasn't it, of
Yes.
an average thing.
So if someone wants to get something like an exam or a big piece of work at home, they will do it if they're good at it as
Yeah,
well. If
that's
they're
the
not
thing.
just taking the
If
question
they can
and
use
put it
AI
into
well,
GPT. Yes.
You're not going to really know the difference. It's only the students that are currently using it badly to cheat that
Yes.
you pick up on, because it is clear as day. But that's always been the case for cheating as well. So
Yeah, from copying from the text and not paraphrasing,
Yeah.
Yes.
and everything, and everything else, and copying from your buddy.
yeah,
We have to use them as learning opportunities, and we need a better response for what we do if that student then says, yes, I did use AI, that's no different to any other approach that you would use for any other
course not.
plagiarism. It's
Yeah.
not a specialist.
yeah.
It's still cheating's cheating once somebody's fessed up to it. Yeah. So you deal with it in the same manner.
Yes.
But what we know then is it's a learning opportunity that has to take place for that learner, so they understand,
Yes.
because they might not have used it, like I said, from a place of malice or deliberate cheat. They think, oh, I put the question in, it's come up with new knowledge.
Yeah.
That's what I put in.
It's really hard to get that across to some students, especially as we can't get across that to some staff. So we're still in a place of learning where people's knowledge about what this is and what counts as what is still quite limited, I think.
I totally agree with that. Not just with assessment, but it brings new challenges for our staff as well. So I keep asking this question, people around me, and hopefully people like yourselves who can give us a part of an answer. What do you see the challenges for new teaching staff? Because we have obviously in all of our college, we have a mix of colleagues who've been teaching from a few months to 30 years, etc. But they all face the same challenges. There are AI challenges. I mean, there are compounding challenges that the digital space is already creating. Never mind in terms of assessment and authenticity. But how do you see it? What are the challenges for teachers with AI now being, whatever, 2 years and a bit into it, being able to do, I don't know, ridiculously amount more than what it could originally? What are the challenges in the next few years for them?
I think the challenge currently is for staff members that haven't yet engaged to the level that some others have, and for them to sort of get their head around what counts as plagiarism if some of it's generated and some of it's allowed because you're using it in the right way. Like, I think that's a challenge for some staff at the moment, is to work out at what point they're allowed, and that, I think, is just an upskilling and practice in the space. I'm not sure what the challenges will be sort of going forwards on that. I'm hoping they'll just sort of become less and less, but I think as things change so quickly and our policies and our legislation doesn't change so quickly, that will continue to be the problem we have, is things changing too fast for us to make effective change.
Right. That's cool.
So I have PGC under me, which is really interesting. So I get all the new teachers as well. So I see that a lot. So I think it's compound. A challenge for a new teacher as a new practitioner, because I think there's challenges at each level. As a new practitioner, you're learning the bones and the structure, you know how to put together a good lesson. Your craft comes from being in the classroom and practicing. So it's almost like having too much exposure to everything and reinventing everything, because you can reinvent everything all the time, and then losing sight of, am I measuring, am I doing the right thing? So I think it's the over-enthusiasm. Look at me, over-enthusiastic, but I'm criticizing that in life for once. But being over-enthusiastic and wanting to do it, and then losing sight of, am I checking my learning? Because they want to and they can, and they're willing to embrace it and they're willing to challenge. That's the challenge as a new practitioner. A challenge as a new practitioner going into an environment whereby they might be entering a team where they're reinventing what they're doing, or an approach to what they're doing, and they're actually creating nice opportunities for the learner, but they're creating a barrier in their internal department, and they're like, you can't do that, that's not fair, or the learner doesn't like that, because all of a sudden they might be exposed to multiple teaching staff that deliver things in a very different way, and all of a sudden that comfort area is where the learner thinks, I'd rather do this, I don't like the way you're doing it, and that could actually really demotivate a new practitioner. Of course. And also being in the department or in a team, it could really make them feel like, I'm stuck. I'm just gonna have to get stuck in the routine of doing everything, and we're in danger of how can I put this? New teachers give us the chance to bring all this enthusiasm, this all they've known as part of their teaching. So we have to capitalise on that. We have to use them as, when we put together peer sharing and how our work is shared and shared practice, we have to use them to help us change the others. But we've got to make sure that negative barrier doesn't stop it. But also, they haven't had the exposure to learners in terms of assessment, because let's face it, with PGC education, and we don't teach them to assess. We've built lots of things in, but we don't teach the assessment bit.
No, we don't.
We don't teach marking. No. We teach them how to teach, and then we release them, because that's the nature of the standard. Because all we're checking, it's a bit like an MOT, isn't it? We check them that they're roadworthy, right? We can't check that they can park. They can't check that they can park the car safely. Yeah. And they can't check that they know how to check the tyre pressure afterwards, etc. We make them roadworthy, okay? Yeah. They're on the road learning how to drive, and that's what's happening. But because they haven't got the ability to check integrity, learn a voice, that experience, they may then miss where there are opportunities where AI has been used for plagiarism assessments. So I think it's a challenge as a practitioner to not run before you can walk, a challenge not to lose your motivation, and a challenge to be able to make sure learning is taking place and you are learning how to catch it if it's been used in a form of malpractice. I think it's a complex space. don't know if I answered that. I went off on one.
No, that's cool. You've definitely described really well how someone new to teaching comes to it, and what obviously they bring, and the challenges that come with that. And bringing it in terms of, I think Minty alluded there to adoption overall to AI-enabled practices, or AI being part of your practices without calling it that even. That, I think, it's going to change the way, you've alluded to that already, of how we teach, how we assess, how we create stuff or co-create stuff, whether it's something admin-wise, a report, or a lesson plan, formative assessment. But for me, that's the biggest challenge of taking everyone on that journey with us. Because, like you said, Leanne, there are so many skills in that staff room and so much experience that we can build on. Everyone has something to offer, but it's starting that discussion. And for me, I'm really excited about starting those discussions in the staff room where trust exists, because all of the good stuff I've learned that I wasn't taught in a PGC, and not that I wasn't taught good things in a PGC, but all of the good stuff outside of that, the informal curriculum, if you want, or the hidden curriculum even, has been in trusting staff room type of discussions. And those have been invaluable to me as a practitioner. But I think for everyone, we need to have that open up so everyone is permeable to those ideas. And that's the challenge, I think. Cool. Let's move on. We'll flip to tools now, because I know we can talk about that a lot. Is there anything else you want to mention in terms of teaching, learning, assessment, learners who do their work, don't do their work, whatever it is? Plagiarize sometimes. I'll say it quiet.
I think it's a hard one, really, isn't it? I think there's going to be a kind of feeling as we go through this next couple of years where generating and analysing in a new way is deemed by some as like lazy almost. Like you've got lazy with how you think, or you've got lazy with how you can write.
In my day, I used to do everything by hand.
Exactly. And I'm like, well, some people at one point would have been called lazy for not knowing how to knit their own socks. So like, things do change, but I think that is one of the things we're going to come up against is this idea of like, well, what's lazy? What are we actually trying to assess from them? What do we want from them? If this is the new way of working, why do we need to make them do something and jump through hoops?
Yes.
Jump through hoops they're never going to go and use again, you know? So, yeah, I think that's one of the biggest problems we're going to come up across.
I think we need to explore how AI can give us time back in the classroom teaching.
Well,
It gives us more learning opportunities. There's multiple assessment opportunities.
Yeah.
But if we can plan more efficiently, if I can get somebody to regenerate their schema works, they're not churning out the same one year after year, they're jigging it a little bit. That's amazing. And it didn't take them any time if they used AI.
That's right.
It doesn't mean that they're lazy. It just means they've looked at something and it's given them a different way of looking at it and prompt. They've still got to use their professional judgment. It's the trust thing. To check it's the right thing, that it's got the learning outcomes. They still have to create the resource, even if they're putting it as an input. They still have to assimilate that learning, but it's giving time back in the classroom. And we need to look at, and I say whole college solutions and school solutions, to take out what do we need to assess, what do we need to monitor. We've got practitioners that spend lots of time marking and assessing, writing reports and things. We need to rethink what do we want them to do. And if AI can help us do it, AI can run a data algorithm for me that tells me what the most common issue is with my students when they're writing an essay that I haven't got to look back over. I haven't got a problem with that because I'll spend the time creating a task that fixes that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we need to not see something you said. We not need to go, I used an AI.
Yes, yeah.
We don't say, I used Word to create my document, right?
I used spell check.
I used a board to project. I don't want us to sort of need to say, I used AI.
Yeah.
I want us to go, this is my teacher toolkit. And this is what I do. That tool was really good for data analysis. It gave me this report. Oh, that's brilliant. That's what I want to see. Yeah. Giving us time back in the classroom.
I love that. And I think I want to project that as well, but I'm hoping that as people see that transparency, behind what we do and how we do it, that hopefully creates that trust and buy-in, and hopefully with learners as well. Cool. Let's switch to AI tools, which is the world of startups, right? It's bigger than we can pinpoint. I've got a list. I keep ticking things on and off as I look at them. I'm sure you have the same. I've heard, Leanne mentioned something. I'll go and look that up. Yeah, that's cool. It's like that one. I'll put it in this little box and so on. Because it's, like you said, Minty, it changes. It's ever changing. Everything gets added. We've been playing with the text to audio one that's in beta for like a year and a bit now. I don't know how long it's been in beta, but it's great. We love using it. What AI tools do you use and why? Please don't tell me you use 25 and you're going to tell me in depth all of the ones you're using yet.
No, I've got a couple that I'm quite excited about at the moment. My biggest one, and I think this is one that I would love to roll out more as we get permissions and accessibility to them, is the GPTs from ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Yes.
And especially some of them are amazing. So the one I go to all the time is GPT Scholar.
Would you mind just framing for whoever's watching this what those GPTs, the custom GPTs that you're talking about,
so
what are they?
A GPT is basically a pre-prompted section of ChatGPT.
Yes.
So instead of being like, you are a teacher, you teach year 7, you are English, and trying to prompt all of these things to create your own prompt in ChatGPT that will do exactly what you want, you find a GPT that's already been coded by someone to do that for you. Or if you've got the master plan that you pay for, you can create your own GPTs.
The master plan. I love that.
You can create your own GPTs, not even by coding, just by typing and telling it what you want.
So a bit of prompting, a bit of knowledge base. You can give them documents, etc., to learn from. That's cool.
Absolutely.
So you would like to explore that more?
So that's one thing that I'm loving at the moment. Yeah, I'd love to create some more GPTs, and I'm even hoping that maybe that can mitigate some of the problems we're having at the moment with like you have to go through 400 hours of marking to find what problems your students have. So that kind of thing, I think maybe GPTs with exactly your specifications and needs will be for in the future. But at the moment, one of the ones I use a lot and want to roll out in the classroom, especially for things like the Welsh Baccalaureate and the Advanced Skills, is GPT Scholar. And this is one that has access to all kinds of academic papers. You can be like, I would like to research forest fires and the harm on the world. And it will give you all sorts of really good links, and then you can click through and there is the paper, you can read it. You can be like, can you find me some quotes from this paper that go with my paragraph here that I want to find out?
Love it.
This, and it'll do that. And that, I think that's an amazing tool.
Talking about time saved, eh? That's cool. So custom GPTs for, I think we describe an academic research type of scholar one. That's cool. We'll come back to Minty in a second. Anything? What about you, Leanne? What's the one you like the most?
GPTs, we've got the master plan, so creating our own GPT. I love it because like, the idea of me, I'm creating my own GPTs is wonderful for me. It's just fantastic. But it's allowing me to stretch and think, what can we use it for? And it's all with this vision of, can we end up having a whole college plan or teams plan and things? What I'm really thinking about all the curriculum areas that we can use it for. But something I've gone back to, and it's a really small tool, but I've been using it lately, and it's been only because I've seen it as a great access tool. There's a tool called TWEE. Have you seen it?
Nope.
TWEE. Okay, comes up and it's supposed to be an English tool for English literacy and English literature. No, it's more than that. They're underselling themselves, right?
That's going on my list.
It's got TWE. So you can have things like text to audio, video questions, all sorts of things, but also take a Vimeo clip, YouTube clip. You dump it in the generator that's already there, and it will generate a quiz from that video watching it. So if you want to create a comprehension for some asynchronous learning, you create, and it does it. It watches the video for you. Instead of you watching it 20 times, I will watch it as after the quiz has been generated or whatever, for example, to check. But it means I've only got to look for it once, and I'm checking as that question come out. But then the speed of then upping the difficulty, and I've got 3 sets of assessment from one tool amazing. But it did, it'll do text to audio, it'll do multiple choice quizzes, it'll do word search things for different. I've tried it for like our ILS curriculum,
Yes.
right up to HE. So I put a leadership and management level 6 video in the other day and asked it to generate questions for that, to check what's going on. So they're not just sitting there as passive passengers watching a clip. They were active. That is such a little simple tool, but I think it could be used anywhere. And if you think about Welsh Back, absolutely used in that. So it's a really simple one, but I want to really give a shout out because I think people can start using it is Twee.
That's not.
That's
I've
really
not tried
cool.
that one.
I haven't tried that one as well. Usually what you find I've tried a couple of those, and their name escapes me, and I'm sorry about that. But the ones I've tried, the level of differentiation, it's not very good at scaling things. You have to really play with the prompting to get what you want.
This is click and drag.
This is like
So it's an access tool.
Okay.
That's, if we're looking for people to buy into it, that's where I would, if you're looking to overcome that fear for your most sort of person that doesn't think it's going to offer me anything, do it. Because I had a room of 20 odd people going, oh, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
When you get that,
Yes,
I used for exactly the same output. I use Teachmatic to have a video, and I don't use it for a starter in my art class. I find like a video from the Tate, put it in and get it to generate some questions, just so they've got something to like make notes on as they're writing. Like, think about these things, and then you can share that with your friend afterwards. Because otherwise, you're going to watch the video and you're not really going to know what notes to take, and then I'm going to ask you questions, and you're not really going to give me anything too complicated.
So I've had some success with Teachmatic. I'm on a case study on their website, and the screen pose photo is awful, but never mind. But I've had more success, and I want to give it a shout out because it does have a space for our work-based learning provision.
Okay.
People don't really understand where, teach it there. See the furrowed brow there has made you think,
I
right?
haven't heard the connection
so
with
if you think about, so we've been testing it, we've had the greatest success. In our work-based learning provision, they still have to do some tutorials and tutor assessing and things, but they're out on site.
Yeah.
And they've got to write reviews and targets as part of the whole process. It's cloud-based, so it's not multi-authentication system. It's like they've got their ID.
That's right.
They have been able to sit there and write a review with their learner. And some of our work-based learning assessors are industry-based and things like that. They're not used to writing an academic report or phraseology. They might need to. They don't need to. They've assessed that learner on site. They're like, yeah, he's competent. I need you to show me he's competent because the review asks for it, and it does.
Yeah.
But they can put in a prompt and go, write 3 targets for this learner in Teachmatic for improving punctuality, for improving this, improving that. And they've got this toggle for differentiation for pedagogy. And they're getting really good quality, meaningful targets on site that they just drop straight into their reviews. And it's making the process and the review process better and more detailed. When they're new to work-based learning, they don't always go through a PGC or anything like that.
Yes.
So they're chucked straight in. It's a really great place to take away that blank place because they still need a lesson or they still need topic notes.
Yeah.
But even things like some of the wider areas like preventing British values, right? We have to explore that as part of the apprenticeship framework, and you have to speak to learners about sort of tutees out on site, what have you done with this? And don't necessarily know, how do I approach this question? So they'll put in rich questions or debate questions for causes of civil unrest or recent riots in the UK, or they've put the video in. Gives them the question. So they're there and they're able to respond and write a richer report. And that has been a big thing in work-based learning. So if anybody is trying any of the tools, don't forget about your work-based learning colleagues, because that's where some of the greatest success for efficiency and time.
That's a great shout out, because I think really we put something in place for that scenario. I love the idea that in Teachmatic you can do the whole, move a few sliders, quick in and out in terms of using it. There's nothing you couldn't do with a bit of prompting in another model, but I think some people love that type of, this is the dial I go to, I click this, I drag that, give it a bit of information, and it does it for me.
I think the beauty of, I don't know if you found it, and you might have found it, with something like Teachmatic, and you talked about the GPTs, it's that same thing, right? It's a bit like, I know what I'm going to ask it if I'm in scheme of work. I know what I'm going to ask it if I'm in targets. I know what I'm going to ask it if I'm in PowerPoint slides. it's that access for the person to get over the hurdle.
It kind of frames it for you.
Yeah.
And I think any tool that allows as an access tools for AI, if you're thinking about formalizing your training in structure or anything, or first demonstrations for AI tools, especially like try it with your work-based learning space, I really would say have a go. Having those generators already there helps that mindset, because people don't know how to prompt. And that's a skill in itself.
That's a skill in itself. And that's something, obviously, I think everyone is working on looking at how we can help colleagues prompt better. I'm hopefully trying to learn how to prompt better all the time. And sometimes I overcomplicate things rather than keeping them simple. But, you know, what you were describing with TWE and Teachermatic as well, I've done those things with Copilot, for example. I don't know if you use it. Are you using Copilot on like a big page, if you've ever used that? Or are you using it in the sidebar of your Edge? Both?
Mostly the big page.
Okay. I like it because I can have a video open, like you said, or whatever resource, and it can look into the transcript of that video like it does with the other one, and it can create those. But the prompting has to be clear and spot on. Otherwise, Copilot sometimes gets a bit wobbly with the output.
It just says I can't respond, or I don't know what, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes it does that. It's got its own sign-in issues. But I think depending on how complex the video is, sometimes it gets a bit confused about what it's looking for. So it's putting that out there. Those schools, TWE and Teachermatic and the custom GPTs that everyone, by the way, everyone who's got a Plus account, or what is it called, Plus still, the GPT one?
Yeah.
Everyone is creating their own custom GPTs. I've seen one for absolutely everything. It's from Scholar to picking socks or whatever it is, right? It's like, it's everything and anything there.
I think
people
that's
have added.
when we then get the problem of too much, like what choice.
Yes.
Like in the top 5 or top 10 at the moment, there's the 3 humanizers. And you're like, the other tool that I use a lot, especially as a teacher, is Otter AI. Have you used Otter?
No, I'm excited to learn this.
So it's a dictating tool. So you can take like minutes from meetings you've had, and it will store them. It will give you like the lowdown of like what were the key points, and you can go back in and ask it like, oh, what did Fred say on this date, or like what did they ask me to do, or what were they going to do last month.
Yes.
But the way I also use it is for dictating to myself when I'm marking.
Okay.
So I'll have it open if I've got like my sketchbooks and I'm marking them, and I've got my marking criteria. I'll talk to myself about the marking criteria that I'm seeing with that particular student, and at the end of it, when I'm writing out all of my forms, I can just ask it a set amount of questions of like, where did you find this outcome? Where did I see this outcome? Can you give me examples where I found that out?
Yes, that's really cool.
And then in it goes.
Because I think that's where we're lacking it. I think that's where it is assessment.
You can use it with the student as well. If you've got all your datas and everything's protected, then especially for BTEC, they allow like video things. You can get Otter to read that video or like, watch that video or be part of that video. And then you can again ask it like, at what point did this learner think this? Or at what point did they hit this outcome? At what point did they show this skill? And it's got it there recorded.
That is really cool. Is that a freemium product or is it?
It is, yeah. So after a while, things get archived and then you have to pay to access them. So
how many email addresses have you got on the go with it?
It's
like that.
So it's a really good one to try out.
That's really cool.
Awesome.
Copilot, the paid version, does that in Teams.
Yeah.
But again, I think it was called the recap function, if I'm not mistaken, and that's gotten much better.
Yeah.
But initially, it was not picking up good content.
Yeah. And we were testing it with our exec team recently, and I think to make that work, you've got to kind of be going agenda item 1, so it's really clear,
so it's clear,
and it knows agenda item 2, so you kind of know it's picking up, because otherwise everything just gets lost.
It can get lost. I think it's gotten much better, but it can get lost. Cool. Any other tools you want to shout out to?
We're using, it's a bit of a mixture. So I'm super keen when I bring things together and then it creates a wonderful thing. So we're using ThingLink. We've got a whole license for ThingLink. So you know ThingLink. So you have videos, say 360 videos or existing tutorial videos, and then you can add tags within the video. Okay, so let's say it's a workshop, a motor vehicle workshop, and they need a tour of the workshop, and they've got to have the safety spot in. And you have absence issues and everything else. What you can do is you can then put a tag onto the video and go, this piece of equipment is used for this, that, or the other. Then, where we want to explore it this year, it will take them to a forms or a quiz or a TWE, and you can do a bit of an assessment based on a tag.
Okay.
So that's how we're planning on rolling out, and that's bringing all the stuff together.
That's
I'd
really
love
cool.
to see an example of that.
And that's when I think the bringing together of all these tools and the multiple uses of generators within Teacher-matic. So generate a scheme of work, then take the first week scheme of work, regenerate that 1 week as a lesson, take the lesson, grab an activity, put it into the next generator for a quiz, take the quiz,
You've got the
put it
workflow
as a
already
topic
figured out.
shot, put the topic notes then into debate questions or true or false. That's when it's genius stuff.
That's a very specific workflow. I like it though because you're trying to bring them together, and that's the goal,
Yeah,
isn't
but
it?
that's the goal. It's about productivity and efficiency.
Excuse me. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I know we've been chatting for a while, so we're going to hopefully, if you're okay with that, end on this idea of AI tools we use and trying to link it to this whole idea. I know if you've already mentioned personalization, you've mentioned ILS courses. How do we see AI helping any additional learning needs within our cohorts, our bodies of students, and how do we see AI feeding into meeting those needs, be it personalization or anything else?
I think this is a massive area really to end on. But
It is.
one of the case studies that I looked at for my fellowship and some CPD that I delivered was a student that was of the level of HE but couldn't write or explain their thoughts quite the way that we need to assess them. So using things like Grammarly, even like a simple AI like Grammarly, to just make it accessible for their writing to become readable is just such a massive step up. And it's the same as like us having spell check and stuff, but for them it meant the difference between like passing and failing. And that was huge because at the end you could read their thoughts, know that that's what they were trying to say, because you've had conversations where they've kind of given you that information. But it was written down and you can actually see those thoughts rather than it being nonsensical. And that was massive. That was absolutely huge for this learner. And then using that alongside things like Claude or ChatGPT to research and get ideas and then put their thoughts from that into Grammarly was a huge thing.
I like that. What do you reckon, Leanne? I know it's a big topic, and I think we should have a separate discussion on accessibility, inclusion in AI. But I thought we'll give like a little
teaser.
Yes.
So, mentioned it before, but this is an area I really think has got an area to explore. So I'm exploring it as part of a doctoral study.
Yep.
So I'm my doctorate, working title, Pedagogy and Practice, AI for Accessible and Personalised Learning.
Sounds
Hopefully
good.
you'll all read it and you can all come and you can have attendance at my conference for free. But for me, it gives a non-verbal learner a voice. It gives a non-dexterous learner the ability to have an output. It gives a learner that can't necessarily articulate their thoughts clarity. So I'll give you an example. If a learner might be non-verbal for some reason, and they've got to create a post, doesn't mean they're not creative. A tool like Canva with prompting can allow them to put what's in here out there. They have access to learning. Just because they can't verbalise it or manipulate physically doesn't mean through prompting and through audio and and typing that they can do it. They can have a voice because you can have text to audio, that they can actually pick a voice that they think represents the voice in their head. It gives them access to learning. I think it allows a learner, like I said, that ALN's got a huge definition. It stretches and challenges our learner. We mustn't forget within the definition of ALN, a more open and talented learner, and I do hate that description as well. That's another story for another day. But that's important. We have to recognise that.
Yes.
So we have to it allows us to stretch and challenge our learners in a completely different way. It also helps a learner with dyslexia just be able to be a little bit more confident with the work that they're submitting. And that's where I get annoyed. It's not about plagiarism. Sometimes you've got to think there's something else.
Oh, totally. If it's what Minty's saying, yeah, definitely.
What you were saying. But it allows us to create opportunities for our learners to access the lesson. We can't differentiate our resources all the time, but we will build a universal design lesson that gives a learner and 3 versions of an output for an activity that we'd never have the time to create. That's what it will do. It will allow that learner to be present in the learning experience, not excluded, and that's what I think it does.
It's a really cool area because all of the main features that are coming out, mainly from OpenAI at the moment, in terms of memory of conversations. So again, talking about what the limits are, what the needs are, what you discussed before, etc., how you discussed it, what that particular learner prefers to
ask a simple question.
Yes, yeah. All of that provides opportunities later on to re-engage with that learner, with that content.
Yeah.
Speech to text, text to speech, all of that. We've had it for a while, but everything is, again, to use the same expression, it's down the middle. It's modeled by people who have English first, speech or whatever range, whatever it's considered as phonetical range. It's people who speak without any impediments. And again, if you look at speech to text for people with speech impediments, it's like almost non-existent. I've only found one. There was in the UK, one was based in Israel. And they are the ones who are trying to create machine learning models from said types of speech impediments. So that's an area that hasn't even been explored. For me, there's a lot of potential there in terms of pursuing memory-based AI models, whether they're ChatGPTs or whatever they are, that can remember what that person, what that individual does, how they engage
that
best.
Personalised learning.
And I think that personalised learning area just explodes there.
We can write richer contextualised statements, but also the technology. I mean, every learner's got a phone in their hands, but there's even technology moving now. How easy is it to turn your set of notes with AI into a podcast or an audio that we'd never...
That's right.
Have you seen those podcast simulators now? There's tools coming out, I think, from Google that reads academic journals and turns it into a podcast for you with
Yes.
2 people, pretend people talking about this to give you a podcast.
Yeah, we were
on this
looking at
journal.
some of those. It's scary how quickly that develops because that's marketable. That can
that's
become a
huge.
product
Brilliant,
very
yeah.
quickly.
But for all learners, and Be My Eyes, have you seen that tool?
No.
Be My Eyes, extraordinary tool. Okay, it
so
turns
object
the
recognition.
camera around
yeah.
and it will describe the room to that person. So it can be used in learning spaces because if they know what's going on in their classroom, they can, if they can sense what's going on.
I think when you add that in with the technology of like wearing AI glasses and having it just say it to you,
Yes.
so it's not invasive to the room, but you're getting the
And then
prompts
you
that
have
need.
AR and VR and you bring it all together. That's different.
I forgot the name of the company. I think it was XRAI or X-Ray spelled in a different way. And they were doing augmented reality glasses with translation and subtitles, which is really cool.
One of our
I just
stuff-
want a pair of
One
that.
of our staff is doing them really quickly in the space with dementia patients. So they're filming what it'd look like and people who've lost loved ones and things, and they're revisiting space and replaying it as familiar spaces because they could remember it.
That's
And it
really
lets them
cool.
Feel really comfortable because they remember certain times. They're looking at filming existing houses and spaces if they're not in their own homes anymore or anything else. They've got a video and they feel like they're in their own home.
See, let's have a separate chat just on this because I think that, like you said, it's too big. It's good to start talking about it, but it opens up avenues. You're talking about looking at helping people with dementia, etc. There's so many different avenues that we can explore. Should we explore that in the future?
Yeah.
I'm excited. Cool. I know we've been keeping you for a while. Thank you so much for participating, Leanne, Minty. We'll do this again in a different revolution. Thank you for participating, for your input, and hopefully you've had a good time.
Yeah, it's been
Great.
Let's have
great.
some
Thank you
food
very
and some
much.
extra coffee.
Dear.